Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 202A.
I'm Cam and this is Julie. Look where we are. Look at the green. You know why it's green? Because it's rained every day since the month of August has begun.
And some in July.
Yes, it's just crazy. So we're finally praying for a little break from the rain. And we thought we'd come outside because there's a slight breeze and it's just tolerable enough in Southwest Louisiana to handle a short little discussion outside.
It feels like 104. Just saying.
Well, yay for shade. This week we're looking at Deuteronomy. We're starting in 11, verse 26, going to 16, verse 17.
And if you would like to check out some of our past Rayas, is that right?
Yes.
Raya. All right. That would be 6 A and B, 59 A and B, 108 A and B, and 154.
That's amazing. All right, so let's start. It's so funny. I looked at the older ones, and I always start with, let's start at the very beginning. Well, guess what? Let's start at the very beginning. I have something else to say. There's so much in that Deuteronomy 11, 26, 27, the last part of chapter 11 is just mind-blowing. But what I wanted to discuss real quick was the verse C, which is what I don't know how to say it. R-E-E-H. It's on the beginning of this. Anyway, and it means to see, to look, behold. And so the verse says, see, I am setting before you today a blessing and a curse. And again, this is Moses speaking to the children of Israel. Well, if we go back, and I think we've said this on some other Doc Talks, this really connects to Genesis 22 with the event on with Isaac, okay? On Mount Moriah, which is the Akedah. And if you remember, that's going to, a little bit later in this chapter, it talks about the place. It's going to be the place. And we know the place is where Abraham took him. And if you go back to Genesis 14, it's also where Melchizedek.
Melchizedek.
So close.
No, you did.
I did? Yeah.
Melchizedek.
He's right, the righteous, the God, or the God and the priest, no, the God, not the God, the king and the priest, yes, the righteous one, and that's where he was. So it's really the first place we see it. But anyway, I digress. If we look at chapter Genesis 22, verse 15, that's where I wanted to bring my little nugget, not mine, but the Lord's little nugget for the day. It says, and Abraham called the name of the place Yoveh Rehe, however you say it. I can't say it. And it is said to this day that on this mountain the Lord provides. I didn't say that right, so let's just pretend I did. And by the way, that's verse 14, not 15. Okay, but where it says on the mountain the Lord provides, that word provides is actually C. It's the R-E-E-H.
Okay.
So this is the mountain that the Lord's going to show himself on, that people are going to see. Well, hello. That's the truth. And when you look back at where we are in Deuteronomy, Moses says, see the blessing and the curse. And on that mountain is where the Lord presents his son. So I just love the connection. I had not seen it before. And I didn't really realize that the word provide was the Hebrew word for see. And so anyway, that was just a connection that when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, because he provided the blessing for us with his son, but he also provided a remedy for the curse with his son. Mm-hmm. So that's why both of them were together and we're supposed to see both. Right. So when we take this week, so that was in 11. So when we look at chapters 12 through 16, really, we have where Moses is preparing them to go into the land. The Lord's already prepared them. Right now, Moses is giving them the pep talk. And in chapter 12, basically, Moses reminded them, make sure that when you get there, you clear out the land. Okay, you're going to take the land as the Lord has commanded you. He's going to be providing, and you're to clean out all the idols, all the things that were used before they arrived for worship to other gods. And then in 13 is the reminder of, okay, basically now, if anyone starts to teach about those other gods that have been removed, you need to take care of that.
Right.
And it's on a personal note, and then it moves to the cities, okay, to the bigger. Because if you didn't get it on the personal, it's going to spread to the cities. So that's why you want to do the first method, I guess you'd say. And if not, then the Lord provides it for a second. So then chapter 14 is all about how we eat. And then it starts with the tithing, how we take care of the poor. And 15 is all about taking care of the poor. But when we get to 16, It's now starting about the feast, the things, the festivals that are going to happen in the land. This is what they've been waiting for because they've known about this, I'd say since Leviticus 23. But
Right.
so that was when they had first erected the tabernacle. But no one ever really got to participate in them because they weren't in the land yet. Moses hasn't gotten to participate in these. So I love the way this week's, you see the preparing so that 16 can happen. Because if they're not taking care of each other and they're not eating properly, then we have abominable events happening. They'll be vomited out. And then backing up to 13, if they're allowing them to be led astray by other gods, they won't be there. They'll be vomited out. And 12, if they let the false gods, temples and their temples and their altars and all those idols stay, again, they won't be able to stay. So each one, 12, 13, and 14, are contingent for there to be obedience so that 16 can actually happen.
It's funny because that's kind of how he leads us into this, I find.
Oh, absolutely.
We got really interested in the Torah and just learning about it. Mm-hmm. Then we learned about the feasts. We learned about those things. But then one of the easiest things to do is to eat clean. So we started eating correctly. So and then, true. I don't know, I kind of see a pattern there even with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really kind of, on a bigger scale, was thinking about this with Israel. They start to follow those other gods and they start to do those other things. Then they're out and they're spread out, right? All, scattered. And then in 47, 48, they come back into Israel. The Lord reestablishes them. It's kind of like they've entered the land.
Yeah.
And now they've got to go and take over and conquer. And the question is, will this generation get it right? Because during Joshua's time, there were areas that they didn't quite clean out. Gaza Strip is one of them. The places that they were told to clear out, and the people who lived in the tribes that lived in those areas didn't quite follow through. At some point, my opinion, the generation that says, we've had it, we will not entertain this, we'll do no favors, you've got to get out, will be the one, again, that will usher in the Lord. I think that showing that they're willing to say, hey, we're getting rid of the other gods. We're not going to see how you worship those. We're not going to do those things. And again, I don't know. It's just a thought process of every generation has its ability. Israel's come back into the land. They're being gathered again. Mm-hmm. So this is literally, Deuteronomy is literally a pattern, a how-to instruction book, manual, on how to properly occupy the land.
You know how the verse says, if my people who are called by my name will see, and you always say, well, if they'll go back a few verses. So I think that them getting it right and having enough will be the same way. The thing that's going to get them to that point is they're going to accept the false Messiah first. There's going to be some who accept the Antichrist first.
Right.
Then they're going to see this is not right. And then they're going to get it right.
And so many Messianic Jews in Israel right now, so many Messianic believers, Jew and Gentile, who are there so that when the leadership go after or follow or deceived, and a lot of believers as far as Christians will be also deceived by the Antichrist, there's already a good foundation of grassroots there to be able to walk out the truth so that they can see that in a comparison. So when they realize they have someplace to run. Right. Because they will realize and they will come to see Messiah. So another thing I wanted to look at was the idea of poor that's in Deuteronomy 15. In verse 4 it says, only there should be no poor among you, for Yahweh does greatly bless you in the land, which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you to possess as an inheritance. Okay, so that verse right there says, no poor. There should be no poor among you. But then I want to go look at same chapter 15. I want to look at verse 7 through 9. 7 says, when there is a poor man among you, one of your brothers within any of your gates in your land, which the Lord your God is giving to you, do not harden your heart, nor shut your hand for the poor brother. For you shall certainly open your hand to him and certainly lend him enough for his need, whatever his need is. Be on guard, lest you be thought of as a wicked in your heart, saying, the 7th year of release is near, and you give an evil eye against your poor brother, and you give him not. And he shall cry out to the Lord against you, and it shall be a sin to you. Okay, so there's poor again. Not just that, you're supposed to help him. Okay, one more verse. That's in verse 11. Because the poor one does not cease from the land. Matthew 26:11, Messiah says the same thing. He says the poor will always be among you. So which is it? There is no poor, or the poor will always be among you? Well, kind of both. Yep.
If they were doing it right, there wouldn't be poor.
Right. That is correct. But I'd like to say that that's not the way we define it. Here's what I mean. The lending to your brother, and then it's going to be removed or forgiven in 7 years. That is not like, I want to buy a house. Can I get $100,000 loan? You know you're not going to pay that off in 7 years.
Yeah.
That's not what they're talking about. What the Lord's talking about is the man who can't feed his family. And so you buy him groceries for 3 months. Or you pay his rent 1 month. Or you do something like that that helps him get by. It's the one who's in need. But what it means here when there should be no poor among you is, if you remember in Malachi 3, I think it's 10, and then we also talks about it in 14 and 15 about giving the tithe, right? Mm-hmm. You're giving that money to be set aside so that it will help the poor, the widows, the Levites, right? So they're provided for. So see, when everyone in Israel is doing what they should do, like Julie said, there's no poor among us. There's no one in need. So when you lend to your brother to pay for things, you should do it as if you aren't going to get paid back. The Lord provided you with this money so that you could give with this person.
Yeah. Okay. And sometimes it can go the other way as well, because the poor had something they had to do in order to not be poor. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So you have the other side of the coin where people are leaving the corners of their field, but the poor don't want to go pick it.
Right.
They don't want to get out there and do anything that would better themselves. They would rather just sit and with a can or whatever the case may be.
The labor is worth his wages.
That's not how he, right. It's not how he set it up for them to not be poor.
Right. In this system, in the Lord's system, there will not be people standing in a bread line and then going home and watching cartoons. I mean, that's not going to happen.
Right.
They will be a active participant in society, and their needs will be provided for. And that's not through socialism.
Sorry.
Look, that's not through socialism. Mm-hmm. That's not through social justice where you take from who has to give who don't. That's not the way it works. It's built into the system. I mean, the Lord has set up so that everyone's provided for, but not everyone's equal. That He's never said everyone will be equal.
Right.
The person who works harder does better. That's just the way it goes. But that doesn't mean that the person who is not able to work is punished because he can't work. No, of course, the person who's got no legs, you provide for him, but he still does what he can. He makes something with his hands.
Right.
He has wisdom. He learns. He teaches. There's something, I think one of the issues we have in society today is that we have so many people with no real purpose and no real self-worth, meaning they don't even realize that they can be a productive part of society because they've been told for so long that
they can't.
They can't, and the government owes you. Everybody else here owes you. And it's a skewed mentality, and it's one that actually neglects the brother. It neglects others because it's so self-centered. Anyway.
Right. If you were born into this world, you have a purpose. God has a purpose for you.
Amen. Amen. And hopefully we do it right, because if not, He'll use us on the bad end for a purpose too.
Well, everybody has a purpose.
That's right. That's right.
You still have a purpose.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So I just want to bring that up about the needy and the poor, because the Lord absolutely does provide for them, but He uses us, His hands and His feet. And there are lots of songs like that, right?
Yeah.
Let's be His hands and feet. Well, that's how I'm providing for the poor. But the poor would act a little differently too. So, and I just wanted to bring that up about the lending also, that wasn't giving to a person who owns a house or who wants to buy a boat. Those things you actually could charge interest on if you wanted, because that is an investment.
Things.
Yeah, that's an investment in pleasure, right? Yeah. Those are not necessity. This is only talking about necessity.
That's a house is a necessity.
Yes, but a $2 million house versus $40,000 house.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. You got to go ask someone. It's just mm-hmm. And you don't want to work.
Right.
Not going to happen. And the last thing I just want to throw out there is actually from chapter 12. It's verse 10, and it says, "Guard yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them," the false gods, "after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire about their mighty ones, saying, how did those nations serve their mighty ones? And let me do so too." I thought of the universities. I thought of the universities with this, and I thought of it with chapter 13. And I figured that whenever Messiah returns, whatever study centers there are will not look like the universities of today.
Yeah.
Because one of the big things is anthropology. And I loved anthropology. That was a part of my study also. But I realized, do not go study how the others worship their gods. That's a huge thing taught in schools. How the other religions worship their gods and how they did it, that type of thing. And we are so in a melting pot thought process that it's all mixing, and we have exactly what he's like. Don't do this when you get into your land. When you get into the land that I'm giving you, don't do that. So I would suggest in our homes to beware and don't do that, because when we think about, oh, that was cool, they used to do this, to their God, and do it, we are we're welcoming in that foreign God, that spirit of that God into the nation, into our homes, so anyway.
That's how we became so splintered in Christianity.
Yes. Oh, that's so true.
That's exactly how. Yeah. People brought in their traditions they did to other gods, but now it's just to this God. And it's exactly how we became the way we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that whispering in your ear, well, God, that's what universities just constantly do. Yeah. They're whispering, oh, your God isn't. That's why the statistic of, this used to be the statistic, it's probably changed, of 100% of people who went in as freshmen in college that said, I believe in God, 70% of them came out as atheist, of that 100%. Atheist. The other 30 wasn't necessarily that they were still really heavy believers, but 70% came out as don't even believe in God. And now, talk about some whispering. Anyway, food for thought. Take it with you this week. Think about it. Study the Word and really look at what Moses is telling us. Because remember, Yeshua quoted the most from Deuteronomy.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see you next week. And we hope you have a fabulous, fabulous day and weekend. Shalom.